Hello everyone, it's Maxim. Hi.
Hello.
Very good evening.
Hello, all. We'll give folks a couple more minutes to join. Shared a link to the notes document in the chat if folks are interested in recording their attendance or checking in there. All right, we're just about 5 past, so we'll go ahead and get started. And looks like we've got another person joining as well, so that's good. Just our traditional kickoff here. Just a reminder to everyone, the meeting is being recorded and will be posted to LFX and YouTube shortly after its conclusion. Your participation in these meetings is an agreement to abide by the CNCF's Code of Conduct, which can be found in the repo and website. Are there any volunteers for scribing today? I can help.
Thanks, Mike. And with all of that said, the first thing is always new member introductions or folks who haven't been here. So is anybody who would like to introduce themselves? Mario.
So, hi, I'm not necessarily new to this, but my role will have changed. So, hi, tech security and compliance. I will be your new TOC liaison starting next week. So, there will be a pull request and stuff like this to change stuff, but I will be your new liaison for anything for direct communication towards the TOC.
Awesome. Thank you for joining, and we're looking forward to continuing working together.
Me as well. Me as well. But that's all. Thanks.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I guess I can go.
Oh.
I've been here once, but I'm here a second time. I'm Julian. I'm part of Tag Developer Experience, and over the past few months, we've run a survey around how security impacts developer experience. So I'm here with the hope of presenting that to the folks here after. So I have a bit of content around the takeaways, and Justin has mentioned that this would be a good forum to share the findings.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, thank you. All right, and I think with that said, you're the main item on the agenda. So if you want to go ahead and kick off that would be perfect.
Perfect. Then let me share my screen here. All right. are folks able to see my screen here?
Yes, we are.
Perfect. All right. So a bit of background context. So I started that initiative last year with the hope of surveying CNCF project maintainers and contributors on how security would be potentially impacting in a good way or in a bad way the developer experience of their project. And at the same time, for other additional context within within Tag Developer Experience, we started a similar survey around how AI was impacting developer experience. So I'll use it to do a comparison around what is top of mind of CNCF project maintainers and contributors. As you could imagine, AI is for sure top of mind due to how it is changing a lot the landscape, and it has received either over or at least something like 200 response to the survey that has been communicated in a very similar way, where for security, trying to achieve a similar outcome for respondents, but targeted at security and not at AI, got 12 valid response. And that was even more broadcasted than the AI survey, right? So I think that's probably our first takeaway here, which is, although security, I think, is probably important in the minds of maintainers and contributors, it's not top of mind for them right now, at least compared to how AI is solidly changing the landscape. But still, we got some respondents. So I took the time to extract the takeaways. We should probably take them with a grain of salt because a lot of the folks that have answered are actually part of open telemetry projects. I think something like half of the answers are from that. So everything has to be taken with a grain of salt. Use it for it's directional. It's not to be interpreted as hard data that solidifies things you are or are not doing, right? So just want to put that there. 12 answers is already something, but it's not a lot. So, and at least the initial goal as well of the initiative was to be able to potentially do interviews with folk to try to surface how they have been successful with security adoptions and to try to surface that to the community. There hasn't been a lot of folks that have responded. I think one person volunteered, which at that point it's not really entirely useful to do an interview with one person, but we have their contact information if we want to do that. And if we compare it then again with the AI driven survey we've done, a lot of folks have volunteered for interviews, right? So I think this is another part here where we see the attention is severely driven elsewhere than security for now. So if we look at the main takeaways that we were able to gather, nobody at least said they were resistant to putting security initiatives within their project. So it wasn't necessarily them resisting. It's more that it's introducing friction. And we'll see here that the biggest blocker right now that we have is basically maintainer time and contributor capacity to being able to put these into place. And one of the other takeaways that we have is from the 12 people, which is again not a lot of folks, but from the 12 people, 10 of them reported very low familiarity with tag security guidance. Oh, it should be tag security compliance, sorry. So tag security compliance guidance. So although these are publicly available, I think they're advertised in some maintainer forums, right? But the familiarity is still extremely low, at least for the folks that have answered here. So I think maybe one of the takeaways will be that how can we get the security guidance that you guys are authoring, get that more broadcasted so that folks have more familiarity around it? Because at least from what I've read in all the blog posts you guys have and in that guidance, right, you're actually giving solutions that kind of get close to what people are reporting here. So even though they have low familiarity, there's like overlap between what you guys are suggesting and what they are adopting. So that's also a kind of a good news there. But I think improving the familiarity is probably a good thing there too.
Is
Yeah.
having to go read guidance part of the friction? Like,
So I
having
think
to explore and
that wasn't part of it. What the very first question was basically, what is your level of familiarity with tax security and compliance guidance, right? And all answers were extremely low, but it wasn't part of, hey, I need to go read guidance and that's friction. So that wasn't part of it. It's just, I think people are just truly not aware of it. And I think in some comments, I put all the survey, very detailed results are on the TOC GitHub, right? But like some people weren't even aware that guidance existed, right? Or probably not even aware that tax security compliance is a thing, right? So although they're contributors or maintainers, not even aware that this exists. So if we look, was there another question? No, okay. All right, so if we look at what the current state is,
I think Mario had a question, or he has his hand raised.
I didn't see the hand up because I have it like super minimized. So
yeah, my one question that that would be interesting is, have you also asked that if there's automation for security for projects, that the maintainers don't have to care about this? Would be this something that they would that maintainers would accept in their projects? So in this direction, like taking away the pain for them to need to learn or to do something and just go with the flow of the automation. Is this something that you have considered in this or asked?
So we didn't ask this explicitly, but I'll jump a few slides because this doesn't need to be hyper structured. But if you see here, like Dependabot was the most popular thing, right? So, which is very automated in the way that it tries to deal with problem. Like it's a one-click thing, right? So I think as easy as we could make the options to embed into the projects probably seem very welcome, right? So to what extent the automation will be welcomed, I cannot answer this based on, because we didn't ask that question directly, but at least people are welcoming security practices into their projects. And then because again, the main limiter is not necessarily that it adds friction, it's that they don't have the time, right? That's the core outcome from this here. They don't have the time. They're lacking time to do a bunch of things. So it isn't top of mind for them. So more automation, if we follow this logic, would likely be welcome, but we didn't ask the question directly.
Okay, but this is something that we can not assume, but that might be an outcome of this. So that's good to know. That's really good to know. Thanks.
All right. So if we look at what the current state of the project is from the ones that have answered, the majority, but by one, report there are some secure coding standards or practices, which is probably less than what we would want to see. And then we asked for examples of what they would do, but the examples were kind of very broad. Nobody mentioned OpenSSF, which I was incredibly surprised given how it is kind of at the forefront, at least in conferences. But these are the ones here that we see, like branch protection, security.md, signing up the artifacts. All right. Looking at the friction points, as I've mentioned, lack of contributor time was very, very much top of mind. Lack of clear best practices kind of surprised me there, but kind of aligns with, if we know that tax security guidelines are there and they can act as a clear set of best practices, but perhaps the fact that people don't know about them is why they're saying that there's a lack of clear best practices. So I think maybe through kind of education, right, or broadcasting these better, that can help at least reduce this number. And then people mentioned tooling complexity, and then false positives in the tools, which being in my past life in security, false positives are sadly very much part of security tools, and especially, I guess, around CVEs, right? You get CVEs reported, your dependencies, but are you actually vulnerable to these and all of that, right? So I think as far as the friction exists in the tools, the one friction point that comes out of it is not that it impacts their developer experience that much because it gets in their way, but it's more that when there are things that are reported that shouldn't be reported, like false positives, then that is getting in their way of actually shipping, which is not surprising because it's a common problem. So the examples here that we were able to extract, Dependabot was popular, CodeQL, and then having branch and tag protections, and then GitHub action audits and artifact signing. I've talked through most of these, I think, throughout the rest of the slides, but the awareness gap is large. That's, I think, our main takeaway. And then guidance must be maintainer friendly, low friction to adopt based on how people have responded. And then, emphasize automation first patterns, not necessarily, as Mario said, that we automated for them, but maybe things that are, maybe like Dependabot, you click once and then it starts doing things, right? The easiest we make it for people, the more likely they are to adopt. That is true for security, and that is true for anything else, right? So yeah, final thoughts, the methodology. So 13 raw response, one was junk. And then very focused on the OpenTelemetry ecosystem, right? So let's just take this with a grain of salt that it may not represent all of the community, especially with a low amount of respondents and the fact they're heavily OpenTelemetry focused. And then it's not directly blocking anyone other than false positives are the main item that was raised around, like, actually blocking people. So that is it. Any questions or comments? And I guess I can show as well, for the sake of the recording, where this is located. So all of the survey results are here, as well as like a short analysis that basically represents what I've put into the slide deck there. So yeah, Mario, go ahead.
First of all, thank you very much. This is really helpful. One question regarding, you mentioned the socializing of the survey has been done the same way like the AI one.
Yeah.
Was this also published on the CNCF blog? And did you also reach out to CNCF team for putting it on their socials?
So we didn't put it on social. So the outcome of the AI survey, so the AI survey was basically put on the blog, but with the outcomes coming out of the survey. The way we sent out the survey was by basically going on to various Slack channels and socials of folks within the community. So like, for example, myself, right? But we didn't use CNCF socials directly, at least for this one. I don't believe the AI did either. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I'm not aware of it.
Would this help that we have like a contact point towards the CNCF for future surveys, that you can also share it either directly in the maintainer mailing? So because there is a mailing list for CNCF maintainers where basically all of the maintainers are in, that there's an easy way to utilize this. So would this help tech work in the future?
I feel, at least for us, right, I think it would help. I don't know how many surveys will pump out. The risk is, making sure we don't, like, the surveys that are being sent as part of that mailing list doesn't overwhelm the amount of the maintainers that are there, right, by the amount we're sending. But if we're keeping this to a small number of very precise things we want to ask to them, right? I feel that would be useful, right? I think it would probably make it maybe sound more official, although this comes from a technical advisory group, but it would maybe make it sound more official if it comes to a mailing list, and people maybe would have been more enticed to answer it. But from what we've seen with the AI survey, it's not something that is necessary, as long as you have something that people feel like they really want to engage with as far as the survey, which from the looks of it, security wasn't extremely engaging, or they weren't excited to give out their opinion as much as with AI.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the main problem also with security is that it's not the favorite child of everyone. Let's put it this way.
I agree. I think this kind of confirms this this kind of anecdotal feeling. Yeah.
So I think you hit on, I think, a couple of things, which is just one of the challenges I think is that's happening here is that some of the results are probably skewed a little bit towards the people who probably responded probably care about security in the first place, which I think is I think an issue that we honestly have throughout the security community is the folks who are often care. And I think the thing that we've also noticed in the past is anytime we've done stuff either in Tag Secured or in OpenSSF in collaboration with Tag Secure, in collaboration with CNCF, what we found is the OpenTelemetry folks are the folks who are most engaged with how do we do this securely. They are the folks who also have multiple times been like, yep, we are under a lot of pressure to make sure that we're not leaking passwords that via logs, and that data is making its way to just the right spots. I guess I don't really have much of a question, but I do have I think just sort of a more generic thing that I'll just throw out there, which is like, I don't have an answer, and if anybody has thoughts on how do we make this better, because I think the data here is we want more of this. This is super valuable for everybody, because as a maintainer of various security projects, I want to know what's the thing that's preventing OpenTelemetry from using my project, from using my security tool. And if folks have ideas on how to get them more engaged, because even if OpenTelemetry came to me and said, the reason why I don't use the open source projects you do is because it's super hard to use because of X, Y, and Z, that's super valuable, and I can take that and fix it and automate and yada. So any ideas on that would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah. I think Mario kind of touched on an interesting point on if you were to automate things for maintainers, right? But it starts to be a little bit intrusive, where you're like, okay, let's be intrusive almost and push out like based on the guidance, push out not necessarily all the things that would be required to meet with the guidance, right? But like very specific things, and kind of try to be intrusive and like forcing people. But it's also it has to be balanced carefully, let's say. I'm sure there will be some very strong opinion on whether or not this is a good idea.
Yeah, I basically agree with this. An idea that I have, and this also has been discussed with some folks who are here in the call and in various other channels, is that I think a good point to start would be from offering tools from a foundation level that are easy integrated. I mean, we saw the adoption rate of .project was really well, and projects wanted to have .project inside of their GitHub organization. And maybe a good way would be, hey, if you're using the official GitHub action runners that the CNCF on a foundation level provides, they already have security tooling built in, and when you use them for building your releases, some of the stuff will be auto-generated for you. So that's the discussion that is happening in parallel. And I think this survey helps with socializing this, and also with people. It shows that people would be open to adopt this method.
I think I'm next. My experience has been that the only time that projects really pay attention is when they're trying to move levels or enter the CNCF. And then that's the best time to have them fill out a survey like this. Having a survey where you just say, at time X, I sent this out. Because I must have gotten that survey for 2 different projects at least. And I don't remember seeing it because we're all busy. So that would be one way to do things, is to have it be part of that. I would also like to caution us from really drawing any real inference here, because the sample size is so small and everything else. I almost think, like, in big text, it should just say only 12 people filled this out, and everything else should be in like 6-point font at the bottom saying, but if you really want to read into this, here's how you could try to read these tea leaves.
100% agree with you, right? That's why all of the documentation always leads with this as the premise, right? Like, this has to be just something you take with a grain of salt, right? It's not something you take as hard data, right? It's still useful to determine at least the potential low awareness of folks to security practices, right? But not to establish how people are actually embedding security practices in their workflows. I think this is certainly not the right data set to say that, but to at least determine people's, let's call it, excitement and awareness about tax security practices is probably a takeaway, at least I would be ready to make from this data.
Okay, I think I'm next. I was just going to say, Justin did this pretty well with the security friends for security assessments, and Dot Projects did this similarly. It seems like if we want to get standards or tooling out there, we have to go to these projects and we have to help them, and we have to basically send them PRs, or otherwise, say, hey, here's someone who's going to white glove walk you through, do a lot of the work. You have to, use your maintainer powers to approve it potentially. Although with Dot Projects, we got CNCF staff to do that instead. But I think just having a list of tooling or a list of guidances clearly doesn't get it adopted, because people are too busy to go find guidance. They're too busy to go find more work to do, to put it bluntly. And security is always going to be more work to do, unless, as Mike points out, you're panicking about a supply chain attack and, what that means for your users. But any other time, it's just going to be more work.
Agreed. I don't know if historically this is how folks have been proceeding with, like, trying to send PRs, right? Like, from this group specifically, like tax security, like sending out PRs to help people improve their security practices. It seems like with the amount of CNCF projects nowadays, it would be quite a daunting task to do this, and would require a lot of volunteers, right?
Yeah, two things. One is, I think given the how often supply chain attacks are happening, I think just telling people, hey, just as a reminder, hey, as of the last, because I think I see in like Maintainer Circle or some of the other chats, like occasionally when one of these big things happens, everybody's like freaking out. And sometimes that's the best time to be like, hey, if you gave us feedback, we would know a better way of helping serve you. To the other thing, which I both agree with Evan, but also find that it's you can't do that via the just a community of volunteers, at least long term. Like you might be able to do that with actually we had this conversation an hour ago, Justin and I inside of OpenSSF. It's like you might be able to do that with certain things like students or folks who were compelled to like, hey, I do want to help out this project for various reasons. But there's two problems I found. One is, hey, there's more than enough projects to go along, and white gloving each one of these projects is a huge undertaking. The second thing is, and I tried to white glove OpenTelemetry, I want to say 2 years ago or so. And there was interest, but even getting their ability to like sit down in a meeting for a half hour to kind of talk through a few things and make sure I'm doing it the right way before I open up a pull request was difficult. And then the thing that ended up happening again was, yes, they were super concerned with security until their sponsoring organizations had come in and said, oh, actually, we don't want you to care about security anymore. We want you to care about this other thing that's going to potentially make us, money because it's a feature for whatever. And then folks got reassigned or had gotten laid off or whatever. So I think that is kind of where still a lot of challenges come in is, so anyway, just wanted to throw that out there as like, I don't want to be pessimistic, but I do think that that's a challenge is like, hey, we need to make sure that there's incentives for folks to even sit in on the meeting so that they can be white gloved.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think this is a good topic for a session at the next Maintainer Summit as well. Just like in thinking in terms of ways to communicate out to maintainers. I don't know if everybody here is in the maintainer Slack channel and other places, but meeting the maintainers where they are is probably a good way. And I've seen more and more folks posting in their own channels looking for help, and every once in a while we get people linking to those questions back into our own. There was a question the other week about security assessments and whether or not they should be publicly disclosed. And that was, I think, a good example of like, yes, but like hopefully it's a simple and easy question for one of us to just jump in and help point at the guidance we have. So. Any other final questions, comments, thoughts on this topic? All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me and letting me present these results.
Yeah. All right. I see we've already got halfway through the time for today. And I think we probably can quickly go through most of the rest of the things here. There weren't any other time zone meetings this past week. TOC meeting, I don't think there was one
There was one, I
this
think.
week. There was.
Yeah, the notes are posted. I don't think there's anything that is super urgent for us other than that project is starting to roll out, and I think that should be interesting for us to keep an eye on. But
All right. And I think next week is the closed session for um, sandbox review.
Yes, it moved to next week.
Okay. And I don't know, project updates. I saw there were a couple of folks with updates on specific ones. Or I guess Marina, maybe you had
But yeah, I
a
guess
couple
like
of
this
updates.
maybe falls under TOC. Sorry, I should have mentioned it then. Is that the tag elections are for tech leads are closing this week. The nominations are closing this week, and the elections will start, I think, was it the 22nd? Anyway, it's coming up. So if you're on this call, it means you probably care about tag security and are involved in tag security. And so I think some of you have already volunteered as or nominated yourselves for the tech lead. But if not, think about it and feel free to ask us any questions about that.
I believe Justin is the only tech lead who's not up for re-election. So if you are a tech lead and you haven't put your name in there, hopefully you know if you're planning to do another 2 years or not.
I also have kind of like a general logistical question here, which is like, are we supposed to be showing public support for candidates that are running, and if so, how? And I'm not trying to say like we need like a formal vote on a set of bylaws and amendment to our charter or anything. I just mean in general, what do we think is the right way to do this? Because just for clarity, I looked and I've noticed like sometimes people are thumbs upping things and sometimes they're not. And I want to understand if we're trying to send a consistent signal, how are we, what are we intending to do? And we'd sort of, yeah, anyway, talked a little about all of that.
I think Mario is probably well positioned to say something there. So
Yeah, so from for the tech leads, it's pretty easy because tech leads are elected by the chairs explicitly. So there's no TOC involvement in there. And for any candidate, you're welcome to express your support in any given form, especially as you can also nominate people. And I mean, there's not much of a difference if I nominate someone else or if I just +1 under their self-nomination, right? That it's basically the same thing because for tech operational resilience, I nominated someone for the chair position, which also basically publicly shown my endorsement for this. So there is no bad side effect of this, I would say.
So, yeah, I think another thing that's a bit of a challenge is I know we've had a few folks who are relatively new to this community, sort of, but I think new to specifically tag security, but maybe are involved generally in open source security, throw their hat in the ring. I think that one of the things that's a bit of a challenge with some of that is like, hey, we also want to make sure that the folks who are self-nominating, the plan is to regularly attend this meeting, as well, which I think is a bit of a challenge because I've seen a couple of names on there that I'm like, oh, yep, I definitely recognize them, and I think they would be a really good fit. But there's two things. One is like, hey, there's the expertise, which I think we very much value. But then there's also the like chopping wood, carrying water bit, which is like, hey, we also would expect those folks to be showing up to the actual meetings and doing some of that work as well.
I mean, yeah, I'll just say that I think Rion posted at my suggestion in all of the tech lead nominations the guidance for what it means to be a tech lead for a group, which I think has requirements listed for like, who should be nominating and all of that stuff. And so I think that can be used as part of it. So hopefully people are going in about understanding the expectations of the role. And also folks who are doing the voting process can understand those expectations as well. And we can even follow up with people, I think, as part of that process, just to make sure folks are aware.
So the TOC and the chairs are voting, right?
Oh yeah, I was going to say that as well. My understanding is it's both. Last time, at least, it was both the TOC and the chairs. I'm not sure if that was a one-off because of the reboot, or if it's just the chairs this time.
The tech leads will only be voted by the chairs. Like the second round of tech leads that were voted in last year in August. We had like this two phases, right? We had like one phase where the first round where where 3 chairs and 3 tech leads have been voted in, and then there was like 2 months later a second round where only 3 more tech leads were voted in, and basically the tech leads will only be voted in by the chairs, so there's no involvement of the TOC in the tech leads election. This was the only 3 tech leads that have been selected by the TOC in the first round was because of the reboot.
Okay, that's helpful to know also because yeah, what I was worried about was I was kind of worried about how we signal to a broad group of people because we sort of had some internal discussions about like what has worked and what hasn't worked and yeah, okay. That's really good to know.
Yeah, I posted a link to the tag governance with the tech lead section there. And I guess it doesn't necessarily say elections, but it does say TOC approval of the the selections. So yeah, I think just clarifying exactly the process around that, which I'm sure we will do in the coming weeks. So. All right. And then I think Marina, you had an update too on the supply chain technical community group.
Yes, yeah, let me find that link. But yeah, so the supply chain technical community group has another one of our little recipe cards that is ready for broader review. This one is on vulnerability management. The intention for this one is to focus on the just practical guidance for maintainers of projects about vulnerability management, like what to do when a CVE is reported, how to deal with that. And it's very scoped to smaller projects. If your project is Kubernetes, if your project is the Linux kernel, you probably need more help than a short recipe card can give you. But if you're like a smaller project maintainer, I think there's a lot of easier things that you can do right now. And so that's the goal of that. I will find a link right now. Here it is. To that. And so yeah, feel free to take a look. In the next week or so, our meeting's on Monday, so if by like not this Monday, but the next Monday, any feedback could be in, that would be awesome. So that we can keep moving on that. I have a link.
Awesome. Thank you. That's exciting to see uh, new content and work going on there. So it's probably one of the most frequently asked questions is how to handle that. So good to have some guidance there. Um, I think I saw Matt was back for some of the supply chain other things. Evan, is there any other final readouts or things coming?
We have one coming. Yeah, seems like Matt's been dealing with a lot of body not behaving the way he expects, and that delayed his ability to get anything else done. And he thinks he's got that resolved. So we're going to work on getting that final readout done. But obviously, if that only works, we'll see how that goes over the next week or two and figure out what the conclusion is.
All right. There was sorry, Evan, was there more?
Nope.
Okay. There was a update on the MCP, and they're hoping to have the draft ready. That was the update last week, and I haven't seen the first draft yet. Or I guess I haven't seen like a versioned. This is the like official first version or not yet. But we'll have more on that in the coming weeks. The security controls, I saw the announcement that they are published, which is awesome. Good to finally get that merged in there. I don't know if there's any other updates on that work or that group.
I can share an update. There's one thing. Sonu, she is working on the announcement blog, and that has a PR up. And I think the next steps for that are just getting a final review from Jen Power and Eddie Knight. And she's already communicated that, like in the initiative channel. And then I'm working with the Cloud Native Postgres team to create kind of like a follow along blog for creating a hardening guide based on the Cloud Native Security Controls catalog. So that should come out shortly after. But both of those are two things that are kind of in play and will contribute to the security controls effort.
Awesome. Good to see forward progress still on all there's so much that we could do on all these different areas. So, any other project groups, anything else that would like to give an update? All right. So last week I had no electricity and couldn't talk about the initiative project I had submitted. So put a link to that in the notes. I'll put it in the chat as well too. I think this had come up a couple of different places. Karina shared something about this in I think the one of the Tag Leads channel. Which was that there was a link in the contribute site to an old tag security issue 1260, which was actually in the documentation itself, which was a link to this documentation is incomplete. Here is an issue to track following the completion of updating this documentation. And that didn't happen because the issue closed when the repo closed, or maybe it didn't. But one of the thoughts for this is to break this down into smaller tasks and maybe not have a dedicated group or things like that to do the work, but potentially leverage this as a way to look for some first-time contributors or other things like that. And also, I think without having small updates be individual initiatives, we can eliminate some of the overhead or red tape. But there may still maybe need to be some sort of kickoff or at least review at the high level of which sections we want to update, which new sections we would like to create. I had a proposal in there for a couple of things around things like security baseline or SBOM and SALSA provenance guidance, dependency review, GitHub Actions, workflow security, just kind of trying to name some of the common things. Vulnerability disclosure is maybe another one, and maybe we could just directly link into their stuff like the recipes or their stuff that the groups have done. So I think maybe the first formality is to officially accept or something else. I think this is well within the scope of tag security and compliance, and so just getting the co-chairs or tech leads to endorse this as an initiative. I don't know if there's a like quota or threshold of people we need supporting it in order for it to officially be adopted or not. I think maybe it would just eventually we remove the needs triage flag and I don't know if there's an in progress flag or.
Yeah, if there's no objections, I think we have enough folks here that if there's no objections here, I'll go ahead and do that.
You're free to decide if initiatives get started or not. This was only in the beginning that you needed the buy-in from the TOC.
Awesome. Any objections? All right. Then I think we can officially accept this and figure out the labeling details and such. So if anybody is interested in collaborating on a specific section or anything else, there is a notes document as well linked to the issue, which is currently empty. But I think the settings should be such that other people can edit or update things. And so I'll coordinate in the Slack channel and on the issue to see if folks are interested in sort of a kickoff meeting or um, sort of a async review of just capturing the sections that need to be updated and then seeing if folks are interested in maybe smaller bite size updates that could be done. So I think it'll make it easier for the reviews as well too, because this will end up being on the contribute site. So we'll have reviews from the I think the projects team or the docs team as well potentially. So all right. I don't know if there are any other issues that have come up or come in specific to, yeah, I'm not seeing anything. Actually, there is, last week, did we talk about the vendor neutral coding harness for CNCF contributors? It got tagged with tag security and compliance. This was open May 14th, it looks like. So that the tag was the tag added recently? It's one of the confusing things about GitHub projects and other such.
I can help, I think, add context to that because I opened the initiative. So I think it was mentioned tag security should have input into this initiative, and we're kicking off next week. So there's a Slack channel at the bottom. You guys are we'd be happy to have a representative from this tag in the initiative. So we'll kick off next week. Otherwise, I'll make sure to check in with this group as we progress with our findings.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate the communication. I posted a link as well for that issue if folks want to follow along. All right. And I think with that, we have reached the end of the agenda. I know with the summer, things have been a little bit slower here or there, but if anybody wants to do a demo or anything else for the next community meeting, I don't think we have anything on the docket right now. I think the one thing, and I don't know, Mike, to put you on the spot, if uh, Tom would be interested in demoing or talking about Wrangle. He has a new personal project that might be kind of interesting.
I can ping him.
Yeah, that would be cool. He's kind of has a set of templates for GitHub Actions and other things like that to make it easier for getting actual Salsa level 3 provenance and a few other things in there as well too. So
Yeah, I'd be interested because I think the challenge, and I know you and I had the same problem when we were looking at the tool belt stuff a few years ago and building templates, is the templates work when everybody's doing the same thing. The templates stop working as soon as somebody's like, oh, my project now has subdirectories for front end and back end, and then everything falls apart. So how do we kind of make sure that those tools remain simple and straightforward without ending up with like you end up with less templates and more like snowflake unique things for every single potential flavor of what a project could possibly look like.
all right.
Kubernetes definitely
and
didn't suffer from that problem.
any other last thoughts, comments?
The only thing, Marina, is that I will also be the TOC liaison for the supply chain TCG. So basically, there's then an overlap. So we tried that TOC liaisons also are the same for attack and TCG that is close to it.
Great. Okay, cool.
All right. Well, everybody have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you all soon on another Zoom call.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.